global scale. The consequence of this is mass unemployment. While growing trade has generally created more jobs, the parallel growing in competition has forced many companies to fire workers in order to cut costs, boost efficiency, and increase profits. Especially some less developed countries have to deal with this negative effect of globalization. An example is China, a country that has experienced a strong economic growth in the last years and has begun to struggle with unemployment, particularly in urban areas. Another financial problem. Yes.
Do you know what source?
Yes. I got it from the internet from an article from BBC.
Okay, I'm not sure what. I'll look it up.
Another financial problem occurred between the 1970s and the 1980s in Mexico, Thailand, Indonesia, and Brazil. These countries received a great amount of money from investors who hoped to build up new private businesses there. These new companies often didn't succeed because the multinational companies dominated the economy of the countries. As a result, they had to close, and the investor pulled out the money initially invested, making the unemployment rate increase greatly as a consequence. In conclusion, I would like to say that globalization is not helping to close the gap between the worst countries and the worst recent countries. And therefore is affecting the world's economy negatively. Thank you.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, let us stop talking about dying ozone. Let us stop talking about the effectiveness of diseases. Let us stop talking and only explaining the negative effects of globalization. Let us instead talk about trade blocks. I want to tell you something about trade blocks, which once again can only be through international relations, through advanced communication, as my four speakers said, through globalization. Trade blocks do not only shape the pattern of our modern world economy, they are also one of the main accelerators of economic growth, not only in developed countries, but also in developing countries. Let us talk about the EU as a prime example for the success of the common market. The EU is the generator of not only 34% of the world's inward investment, but also 46% of the world's outward investment, thereby accelerating both its own and other nations' economic growth. Through the stable and predictable environment the EU as a common market provides for investors. One thing I do want to stress is that since 2014, the EU is the biggest economy in the world, overtaking the USA only due to the common market. But enough of those statistics. Of course, some people would argue that the EU is not a good example, because of the large majority of European countries being wealthy, being developed. But let me give another example. Let us talk about Asia. Asian is a free trade area, including countries like Cambodia, Vietnam, Indonesia, Singapore, or Myanmar, countries of the second and third world. If you look at the rate of GDP growth between 1990 and 2014, you will find that the economics of those countries rose by a rate of 3.8% average per year. If you compare this to the stats of US economy, which only grew by 2.6% in an average year, and we're talking about developed and developing countries. Developing countries are included in the Asian trade bloc. Thank you. Whereas the USA, as a big nation, as a trade bloc, you could say, is worse in terms of economic strength. But why do we actually create those bounds? I mean, why don't we just produce all our goods ourselves? It would be so much easier. But it isn't. Modern world economy involves international work share as a part of our lives. Think about your cars. Where are they from? Are they from Brazil? Are they from China? No, they aren't. They are from Japan, Germany, England. Yes. My point is, only a specialized economy is an efficient economy in the modern world. So, let us be real. Chances that a globalized world provides just cannot be outweighed by the baseless fears of our paranoid opposition. Thank you very much.
Let's begin. Ladies and gentlemen, let's discuss something today that our opposition or the proposition does not seem to understand. Let's talk about something that means more than meaningless numbers and arbitrary abstractions. Ladies and gentlemen, let's discuss the value of a human life. We'll discuss this by debunking 3 myths about globalization. First off, globalization by no means, shape, way, or form promotes a multicultural society. Ladies and gentlemen, globalization has instead been propagating a form of Western values and a form of neo-imperialism among countries are in no way willing to accept or willing to be benefited by them. In South Korea, young women as young as 12 or 13 are undergoing eyelid surgery so they can have double eyelids like the Western models so they see in commercials, advertisements, and products every single day. In international organizations like Pond's, L'Oreal, these international corporations have been marketing skin lightening products to women across the world because Western values, like they believe that the lightness of skin somehow shows their superiority, has caused women in Africa, the Middle East, Latin America, and Southeast Asia to bleach their skin because they have adopted these Western beliefs that lighter skin somehow makes them superior. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the harm of globalization, this force of Western values that only harm countries. But furthermore, let's talk about the second myth, which our opponents so like to talk about. Yes, your point of information?
You have makeup on, so why don't you follow the rule that you have?
I wear makeup because as my autonomy as a woman, I enjoy asserting what my own beliefs are. You are judging me using invalidations that has absolutely no basis, and therefore you're the one who is wrong here. No thank you. And now let's go on to the myth of the United Nations. Ladies and gentlemen, when the P5+1 are the 5 nations in the world that hold veto power, what our opponents say are the most powerful organizations in the world, when less than 3% of this world's 195 countries have the power to make and decide some of the most crucial decisions in this world. That is a fundamentally unequal system of balance. This is the harms of globalization today. Now let's go to this last idea of human rights and democracy, which our opponents keep talking about. Now essentially, Western conceptions of human rights have been forced upon nations through globalization. But according to Joanne Bauer, the former director of the Carnegie Council, human rights are by no means a Western phenomenon. They are deeply rooted in various cultures. But right now, through globalization, organizations like the UN have been imposing a deeply Western view of human rights upon the world to their own detriment. Let us look to Iraq and Afghanistan, where we intervene in the name of human rights and democracy, this Western conception which has been forced upon the world. Let us look upon the graves of innocent civilians. And if you truly believe in the proposition, then I challenge you to come up here and tell you, at the blood of innocents that was shed was worth the price of their so-called globalization. Thank you.
Can I just mention that I believe that was a comment about someone's personal, it's a personal comment about the makeup, so I would kindly ask people not to engage in personal comments, okay? So there's sense it's the discussions about the content of the argument and not necessarily the person. So I could ask speakers from both teams to
Would you like me to rephrase? Sir, would you like me to rephrase? the
Yes, if
question?
you wish to rephrase the question, you can.
Most of women, Asian women, do wear these days makeup that is westernized. Isn't that a point of culture, of destruction of culture? But like, isn't makeup one of the forms that we express ourselves and we transform ourselves into something that we want to become?
All right, Daphne, I believe that you've been misconstruing my point. Now, makeup has been found all around the world. It's rooted in many cultures. Look to Egypt, for example. What I'm saying is that the use of makeup products to lighten your skin is a form of neo-imperialism because of the spread of Western values through globalization. These are two fundamentally different things.
Right, thank you. Just leave it there and you just stop.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you've seen, our opposition seems a little bit too obsessed with the idea of, America being supreme. As always, 1, 2, 3, 4, Americans there. Not that strange, right? Okay, so I'm going to tell you guys that we always seem to be under the perception that globalization destroys cultures. And that, as usual, it's the Western culture that apparently prevails in this entire, debate. So, I'm here to prove to you that this is all just one huge, big lie. Globalization is not a destruction of culture, but instead it's an enrichment of it. The origin of languages that we speak today. Everybody speaks English here, right? Where do you think that came from? From Great Britain alone? Of course not! There's certain words in the English language that we speak today that came from Latin, such as, the word Americans love to use, democracy. Or, words from ancient Greek, like biology. Words from French, a la carte. Words from Spanish, vanilla. Words from Arabic, coffee and alcohol. Point of information. No? Sit down, Bonnie. For all other Asian languages, in particular, Japanese, Chinese, and Korean. These three languages have in common both their written language, such as what can be seen in the traditional Chinese Hanzi, or in the Korean Hanja, or even in the Japanese kanji. The way that they write the character dragon is exactly the same in all three. You guys have internet, you guys can check for yourself. Yeah? Especially for you guys, opposition, if you think that I'm lying. Point of information, sit down. Sit down.
Just finish the speech, please.
And in these three languages, even the pronunciation of these characters are very, very similar. For example, in Chinese, the way we pronounce the word dragon is lo. The way in Korean, for you to pronounce the word dragon is ryo. And the way in Japanese, to pronounce the word dragon is ryu. And therefore, it proves that the globalization is technically the foundation of the major languages that we all speak today. The culture that we currently enjoy is based on the globalization that they so demonize. And therefore, from these languages, we can see that there's a synergy of culture. Synergy of culture can be seen in everything that we do, because culture is our lifestyle. It can be seen in our food. For example, in Britain, they have the chicken tikka masala, which has just been recently named as the UK national dish. And the chicken tikka masala is basically a mixture of both Indian and British flavors. Or we can look to Asia, because globalization doesn't just mean the West, it also means the East as well. In Asia, the Han Chinese traditional dish, ramyun, has been adopted by the Uyghur as well, as a part of their traditional cuisine. They even have a special, their own language, their own word in their language for ramyun, lagman. And thus, it shows that globalization does show an enrichment of culture, because we're starting to accept other people's cultures and create greater tolerance for one another. So, the opposition's arguments, I think, seem nonsensical about the whole idea that it's just always Western countries kind of influencing, the Eastern countries to change their cultural to be, following more of the West. You can see right there with the chicken tikka masala that there's a perfect blend of the West and the East. It doesn't necessarily have to be the West overpowering the East, because that's not what globalization is about, right? Point of information, sit. So we could also say, okay, we can look right now tonight. All of us come from different countries, right? Yet we're here, exchanging our cultures. How many times have you guys have always heard from anyone like in this entire course? In my country, we do it this way. Or in my country, this is how we do things. Or this is what usually happens in my country. I'm pretty sure you've heard that like countless of times. And that in itself is globalization in the way that we exchange culture. Do you feel that anybody else that doesn't come from, like America, do you feel like the American culture sort of like, imposes on you? Do you feel like it's a form of oppression?
Is
Or
this
do
a
you feel-
conclusion or a speech?
This is the conclusion. This is the conclusion. Or do you feel that there is a mutual respect between each other? Between the exchanging of culture? Therefore, all that I want you to understand is that globalization is not necessarily just an American imposition towards the East, but it's also the idea of the East also affecting the West for greater tolerance overall. Thank you.
Okay, final speakers.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to put this plainly without any complicated words or ideas. The proposition speaks of unification of the world and equality. And as they're saying this, a developed nation is using a developing nation as their own personal trash can. Somehow that doesn't ring as equality to me. As my colleague mentioned, there was a huge crisis in Bhopal, India, where 25,000 people were killed, and they can't be held liable for that. They did not go by the required safety restriction and kill 25,000 people and injure 500,000. I don't understand how this can be considered okay. Speaking of health, let's talk about diabetes. Diabetes is a huge issue. Obesity is a huge issue. The proposition talks about unification.
Information.
Thank you. Proposition talks about unification. So what, there's going to be McDonald's everywhere and we're all going to die of diabetes together? That doesn't sound so great to me. And as my colleague who talked about the economy was saying, multinational companies are making countries dependent on them. When companies put money into a country and it doesn't work out, that country fails and there is mass unemployment. I can't see how this is helping these countries when there is mass unemployment.
Point of information.
Yes.
So you do say there is employment in those countries while direct investments taking place.
Yes, but
So
then
you
that-
only speak of the...
when that country is totally dependent on that company, they lose their sovereignty and their independence.
No country in the world is dependent on one direct
No.
investment.
Multiple companies invest, and when they don't work, that risk is not something that any country should have to take. I'm going to talk a bit about culture. The proposition talks about how globalization is uniting countries, but in a multicultural way. We're still preserving cultures. Most people here have probably seen a movie that came from Hollywood. I think that's safe to assume. Not as many people, actually very few people here probably have seen a movie from Bollywood. Not nearly as common. That is definitely an example of the West being more prominent than the East. Taylor Swift, One Direction, Justin Bieber, there is almost nobody from the East that I can name off the top of my head who has a top song. No, thank you. Has a top song, has a prominent movie. This is clearly the West taking over the East. Now, if there were the case that everyone in here had seen a lot of Hollywood movies and a lot of Bollywood movies, that would be a totally different conversation. But ladies and gentlemen, globalization only allows for one culture, and that is the culture of the West. Thank you very much.
Right. That is the end of the team's initial introductory sort of speeches. We will now have a 15-minute session of rebuttals. Okay, so if you can ask the proposition, if you have any questions, now is the time to.
Can I show my graph?
It's too late. Okay, there's a question here for the last speaker.
How about anime movies?
If we could ask the speaker to come to the podium as well, it's okay.
Anime movies.
Anime.
Oh, I have.
They are one of the biggest trends right now, and they clearly a they went to the West, and they are a point where we can see different.
So can you just clarify the question? What is the question?
How can you say that there's only one culture when so many people have different likes and follow different trends? Now is the time where individuality is encouraged.
So your example is the anime movies. I've never seen an anime movie. I think more people. Yeah, I think more people.
About the movie?
Oh, what?
That's exactly it.
I haven't. I've never. They don't really come to theaters here.
European movie then.
That's the West. That's the West. That's
It's not Hollywood.
It's not
Okay,
Hollywood.
can you just ask another question, please?
One question to the last speaker again. Isabel, is it your choice which movies you watch? Or is it globalization's fault that you watch
Well, there are
the
no
wrong movies?
Bollywood movies in the movie theater near me. Like
You can still, there's the internet. It's a
Maybe not
globalized
nearly
world.
as commercialized.
I think you've already asked a question on Bollywood, so I think we can take a different question, yes?
You said diabetes is a cause of globalization because the trend to fast food is happening in every single country in the world. But how then do you explain the global fitness trend and healthy lifestyle trend also apparent in a lot of food restaurant chains?
Yes, you can delegate. So yes,
Yes,
if you want to
to Roxy.
delegate to Roxy.
Okay, so
You can sit down.
what we're talking about is this globalized trend of an unhealthy lifestyle. So this kind of like almost Western approach of having unhealthy eating habits, having unhealthy habits in general, like smoking and drinking and other things that have been popularized in general. That unhealthy lifestyle has been globalized internationally. So I mean, there could be a fitness like lifestyle, but generally speaking, because of statistics and other articles, the unhealthy lifestyle is definitely a problem.
Okay, just take one more question from the proposition, then we will ask the opposition to answer.
So you mentioned
Who are you directing your question to?
the speaker that spoke about human rights. It was
Was it speaking about human rights?
yes. You talked about the UN proposing Western human rights. I don't understand what the difference between Western human rights and let's say normal human rights is. How are the Western human rights imposing negatively on the world?
Alright, so essentially what organizations like the UN do is they propose a deeply Western conception of human rights of the world, which is rooted not only in Christian secular morality, a largely Western phenomenon, but also is largely fueled by Western political objectives. For example, when the UN intervenes to propose human rights in a country that believes does not have enough, it is ultimately closely correlated with Western objectives such as oil in the Middle East, which explains many invasions of countries like Iraq and Afghanistan, all in the name of promoting so-called human rights. Is that enough to answer your question?
I don't understand how oil links oil with human rights.
Right, so essentially in the globalized society that we currently live in, the conception of human rights itself has taken on a form as a political tool. Now, as Joanne Laura goes on to explain, America has consistently used human rights as a tool to criticize regimes that it disagrees with, and furthermore, it went so far as to support the establishment of the ICC to prosecute other criminals of other countries, but America itself has not even joined the ICC.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. May I ask the opposition to have any questions in regards
I have a question for Christina. So you propose that the UN has been a largely effective institution, and so has groups like the ICC. When the ICC, or the International Criminal Court, has completely failed to prosecute Omar al-Bashir, the president of Sudan, who was responsible for the Darfur genocide, and furthermore, the UN has done absolutely very little in addressing the plight of over 3 million refugees of the Syrian civil war, who currently not only have very few places to live, but little food, shelter, and little money have been raised for them. How exactly are these organizations effective?
May I redirect that question to Joseph, since I not actually spoke in the UN? Thank you.
Yeah. It's actually quite crazy. Okay. The UN actually does something. Let us not be personal, but what have we done? We haven't helped any refugees, but the UN has. This Union of Nations is only made to help people. It has helped many people, and pointing out that it didn't help some people doesn't really do anything with the fact that it helped many people. It's like saying that the teacher didn't give you apples because I didn't get one.
Alright, Joseph, I have a follow-up for you.
There.
So seeing as the UN gave cholera to a large segment of Haiti's population, and also failed spectacularly in Rwanda, when you weigh the harms of UN action against your so-called benefits, of which little to none have appeared, don't the negatives clearly outweigh any positive benefits?
Okay, we have heard the number, 70 million refugees. 16 nations. Like, we have seen many countries, many conflicts that were ending well thanks to the United Nations. For example, in Iraq, overthrowing Saddam, in Guatemala, El Salvador, Namibia. These are all countries that were helped by the UN, and by pointing at countries where the UN wasn't able to act, it's just saying that the globalization wasn't good enough. And that is because people oppose globalization as it is.
Okay, move on.
Alright, so you see that the UN has been extremely successful in Iraq. But seeing as the situation there is currently so dire that the Islamic State has gained a huge portion of territory, do you really have any substantial examples of significant UN contributions?
Well, there's Iraq, and some part of it is the ISIS, and some part of it is not. I think it's kind of obvious that it's not everywhere. First thing first, and second thing second, they actually overthrew Saddam. ISIS is totally another threat that came there afterwards. Thank you.
Yes. Yes, stand. Last speaker.
You were mentioning a lot of words that come from other languages. I wasn't sure about most of them, but
I wasn't sure about most of them. I see that I'm interesting enough for you.
Let us wait for the question.
but the last one, you said coffee comes from Arabic. That's not even close.
Alcohol and coffee is considered to be derived from basic words from Arabic.
That's not
Derived. I'm not saying that English stole words. English never steal words. What we do is kind of like take words from different countries and we kind of like bastardize them to a way that we kind of, could say it properly. Because the English linguistic fund doesn't allow them to have like a lot of flexibility in the kind of words that they say. Especially with the Arabic using a lot of like the rolling R as well. Well, not all English words need to do that.
Okay, so just clarify the question, please. Okay. So what is the question?
I'm not asking something. I just want to point out.
This is for asking. This is not for.
Okay, I have a question for you.
Hold on a minute. Mohammed?
Coffee in Arabic is qahwa. It's not even close. That's not about
Okay, it's just a point of information. Okay, can we ask any more questions?
Yeah, I have one for you, Elizabeth. And I'm not going to shout to you to sit down because I need you standing up. All right.
Is this also directed to Elizabeth?
All right, you mentioned loads of Americans here, but if they are reflecting on the role of the USA in the globalization, they say that USA dominates, and then they say that globalization is bad because of this. Why is that bad that we have Americans sitting here and fighting for the opposition?
I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying that it's very typical that you guys always talk about America.
Your globalization basically is not just an American action. It's not just America that incites globalization. It's China interacting with America with trade. And the fact that we saved, like you guys, from your own financial crisis, of course, by buying your national bonds. That is also considered to be part of globalization. America does not have to always be the instigator. I'm just trying to point it out to the audience, because that's what you guys always make it seem to be. America does this, and therefore it's bad because they globalize this thing in globalization. It doesn't have to always be America.
Okay, stop there.
I have a question for Florian. You talked about how you are aware that in a lot of places in developing countries, the labor is very often forced and they're not paying adequate wages. And you said you are aware of that, and yet your group has talked about a lot about human rights and how the UN protects people. What has the UN been doing in Bangladesh? What has the UN been doing in India? What was the UN doing when those people died in Bhopal and in so many other cascades?
First of all, it wasn't me that said that.
I remember directing the point of information to you.
It was Thomas.
No, I remember.
It wasn't me.
Just answer. Okay. May I redirect the question?
Okay.
Not directly me. So, we're here talking about the positive aspects of globalization, what we are. And it's a positive aspect that labor is cheap for big companies. Because
And they can make more money.
yes, it's good for
And other
them.
people can die.
Well, it's also good. Another aspect is that the UN, caused by globalization, is also helping these. So, globalization has negative aspects, we know it, but it is trying to fight these aspects. And yes, I think that answers.
You said how the UN benefits the developing. You talked about how the UN does protect some rights, but that's it. They protect some people. What about the other people when it's not convenient for them? Do they just let them die?
Good answer.
That's great.
Okay, if you could just delegate one person, please, to speak. What was the specific question? Just clarify the question
The
again.
question is, why does the UN protect people when it's convenient for it? And what about the people who are inconvenient
Okay.
and can just die?
Sorry, in what way is
Okay,
for
for
the
the
UN?
I don't know, you tell me.
You just said it, I don't understand the question.
The UN is sometimes an instrument in the hands of the fight developing 5+1, right? 5+1. Yeah, P5+1. What about the times in the Bangladeshi factories when people are being forced to do labor and not being paid their wages? Where's the UN when that stuff is happening?
And what about the times where everywhere in the world no one actually buys those goods because there is written that some people were harmed? And everyone buys goods by other companies which actually don't harm their
What's
workers?
your point?
The point is that awareness is raised, and these companies are not supported by many customers.
So you are saying that it's okay that multinational corporations force people to work for no money, eventually killing them just because they can sell their products for profit.
Okay.
All of the 20
Right, can we just stop there for a minute? Okay, so we've only got a few more minutes, so if I can ask you to have a few more questions, please, for each team. So if I can ask you one more question from opposition.
May I ask you, Bufa, if you could explain your theory of the dying ozone to me, because I totally don't understand and I don't see a scientific explanation for that. Thank you.
Dying
You said-
ozone. The question is about the dying
The
ozone.
ozone is dying, and I can't see an explanation, but you will tell me.
Global carbon emissions and dumping aerosols in the atmosphere has caused the ozone to, I'm not into chemistry, so I can't tell you the chemistry of it, but due to the chemicals that are in the atmosphere, they are perforating the ozone. Right now the whole is over New Zealand, and you can get severe sunburns there because of the ozone. It protects us from the ultraviolet rays of the sun, if you know that. And if the ozone depletes, then whole people all across the world are going to be in danger of very, very serious diseases. They're going to have to lather sunscreen on them every single time they go out, and that might not protect them still.
May I answer then? Ozone is basically created by water, so as long as we have water on the planet, as long we will have ozone. Ozone is recreated. It's not a source that will be exploited and then there will be no more. I don't see this is an explanation for your
Alright,
argument.
a lot of nations will take care of the water too. They'll use it up eventually.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, just, we're running out of time, so just have one more question, please, from the opposition.
Okay, come on, make your question.
Okay, so make it clear, very clear. This will be the final question, so.
Alright, Elizabeth, so I'm sure that we both love chicken tikka masala. But taking into account the fact that right now Western cultures and values are so dominant that in many countries it's impossible to get a job if you don't
Are you
understand
asking me a
English.
question? Or are you
Well,
Oh.
I'm giving you the context. I believe it's impossible to have a question without context. So if you allow me to continue. Now, seeing as English is so dominant, some people are forced to move away from their own language, and seeing as right now indigenous cultures are being destroyed as globalization turns on them, how can we truly say that the fact that coffee may or may not be an Arabic word weighs equally to the amount to which Western values have overcome any influence from any other cultural values?
Did you understand the question?
Okay,
Okay, so just briefly, in one line.
absolutely. I just get you're upset.
Yes, what is the question?
I believe the word is caution. Alright, I believe the word is caution, Elizabeth. By taking into account the negative and harmful effects of the spread of Western global culture due to globalization and weighing that against your supposedly marginal positive benefits of chicken tikka masala, how can we truly say that your positive benefits outweigh the overwhelmingly negative benefits of globalization?
Okay, again,
It's rather
it's
general
about
question, but okay, go ahead.
Again, you keep on emphasizing that it was the West that keeps destroying the culture of everything else. Okay, fine. You keep emphasizing that it was the English language, if I'm not mistaken, that is pretty much taking over all the other languages of the different cultures. Need I tell you that right now, it is predicted that Chinese